thank you also for still being here and your endurance. I know it's very late, and I had quite a blank in the head before coming up here, so I hope I get this right, the presentation. Reconnect. So this is a startup. We have roots at the Psychiatric University Clinic here in Zurich, trying to build a novel approach to psychotherapy. And Reconnect is a social healthcare enterprise with the mission to enable sustainable healthcare. So what does that mean? You have nonprofits on one hand, trying to make philanthropic impact, good on the planet. You have for-profit entities trying to make money. Social enterprises are somewhere in between. And how I define a social enterprise is that you inscribe a mission, something that you want to achieve, an impact, as a top priority, whereas you keep the profitability of your operations as a tool, as a mean to keep running, right? So that you can keep on making this impact over time. And we have heard critics on maps, we have heard critics on science beforehand. I think if we want to achieve scalability, we have to do it within the system, not outside the system. So this is why Reconnect is a venture with the intention to bring this novel type of medicines to the society at large. So why is it important to achieve sustainable healthcare and to make patient benefit a top priority? Well, I'll tell you my story, which started when I left science about 8 years ago. I was a scientist and decided I wanted to get out of researching into doing. Became a healthcare entrepreneur, and full of ambition, I went into this new journey, hoping that all of healthcare industry and innovation is about creating solutions that really cure disease, that tackle the root cause. And quickly, I had to learn, in order to survive in this environment, that there's another side of the medal. And the other side of the medal is that the solutions, even though you bring all the good ambitions, and most innovators and entrepreneurs do, is that you need to make money. And the solutions that make most money are the most successful ones. Unfortunately, even though this wouldn't be a problem, it turns out that the solutions that make most money are not those that resolve the core issues or the root causes of diseases, but those that just alleviate the symptoms and keep on going, right? You have a recurring client. So I'm not claiming that there is a conspiracy. Please don't get me wrong. I don't think there is an evil mind behind this. This is just how the system is set up. It's a system held in hands by for-profit players, and for-profit players not only have the priority to make profit, but the legal obligations towards their shareholders. So this is why we end up in this incentive system creating solutions that may not have patient benefit as top priority. So, and mental health care is a field where this is quite visible, right? When you look at mental healthcare burden, it has actually surpassed the financial burden of cancer already in 2005 and has been growing quite quickly since. And in spite of that, when you look also at the Swiss situation, just depression is a multi-billion franc issue, right? And it's growing further. And in spite of that, the solutions that we have are not really very efficient. A classic antidepressant today has to be given to a patient every day over a few weeks just to see if it works, right? And then if it works, you keep on giving it every day for years, maybe a lifetime. So it's a crutch. At Reconnect, we call this a substitution paradigm. So you substitute a functional leg with a crutch. And now, this maybe wouldn't be that bad, but when you look at meta-analysis of clinical trials with antidepressants, you'll see that maybe 50, actually less, perform better than placebo. Placebo is a sugar pill. So what does that mean? It means actually it would be maybe better for half of the patients just to give them candy. I think there's a lot of potential for improvement there. And what we suggest is a transformational approach to psychotherapy, an approach where we teach the patient to rehabilitate that leg, or teach the patient to develop the consciousness competencies in order to help themselves, empower the patients, right? This was the core message that I got from Deepika's presentation. And how to do that? Well, there are already established tools, especially from the mindfulness behavioral therapy, where people can develop meta-awareness that helps actually disrupt dysfunctional neurodynamic circuits in the brain. But if we're in the acute phase of a mood disorder, the patient may not have the time nor the energy to really develop these capacities. And this is why we advocate for a use of a pharmacological catalyzer. A catalyzer that can be administered only a few times and induce this change, a transformational change. And the catalyzer that we propose is an orally active DMT preparation. We're developing it under the highest standards of pharmaceutical development, good manufacturing practice, and this allows you actually to run clinical trials. Now, it is important to do this in order to ensure that we develop something that is safe and that is efficient. People look maybe with a negative view on clinical trials, but it's very important to ensure actually the quality and the high standard. On top of that, what has to be said about this type of medicine, it is not a mechanistic medicine. It is a neutral tool, a neutral enabler. A catalyzer drives the speed of a reaction, but we don't know where it goes. This is why, everybody who is in this field of psychedelic psychotherapy knows that the setting and the high quality of the setting is key, right? So this is why Reconnect doesn't want to be a pharma company. We actually are a healthcare company with the ambition to create holistic clinical centers that provide this type of therapy complying to the highest quality standards. So who are we to do this? Well, I'm not going to go into all the details of all the skills that we have on board. I just want to say that the group of 10 plus, not everybody's here on the slide, of exceptional individuals that I was fortunate to work with. Actually, what I find most motivating about is that everybody brings an intrinsic motivation to the table. And it's amazing to work in such an environment. It's actually self-propulsing. And on top of that, from an economic perspective, it's very resource efficient. It's amazing what we have achieved with barely nothing in the hands so far. And soon, I think we can achieve even more. Now, the question, or the hard question, of social entrepreneurship in general is who is going to finance this? Who wants to invest in the good of the planet, right? Usually, classic investors want to invest to get a massive return. Venture capitalists expect anywhere between 10 to 20 multiples, not percent, multiples of what they have invested, right? So it's a hard question. I wrapped my head around it, and, who cares, right? I mean, actually, the right question to ask is who should care? And this is where I find the presentation of Theo Kosmora inspiring, and maybe the new way to go, the new modality for social enterprises to get financed is by incentivizing future customers, future beneficiaries, to also become the financial beneficiaries of this, to become the shareholders or the holders of value tokens. So this is why we want to set up a crowdfunding campaign very soon, not offering, posters or something like that, but we're actually offering real value that can be value in the future to those who will benefit from this type of therapy. And who should be those people? Well, when you look at the statistics, in Switzerland, statistics show that 1 out of 3 people will experience a depressive mood episode in a lifetime. So it's not unlikely that it's going to be you, and it's very likely that it's going to be somebody in your close circle of friends and family. So I think this is something that matters to, or should matter to everybody. And with this hope, I think, or I hope that I could convince you to support us and make this a reality. Now, as a social enterprise, you want to make some social impact, right? And the social development goals provide a fantastic meshwork of parameters to measure the impact. And the most obvious that you would think of for Reconnect is number 3, the good health and well-being, sustainable development goal. Now, I want to claim here that it goes beyond that it actually could impact all the different sustainability development goals. And this comes from an observation that I've made when I look at the different development goals and the problems that we want to tackle underneath. I again see something like symptom curing. So if we want to look for a systemic underlying cause, what would that be? Well, these are human problems, and the human problems are usually the result of human behavior. And human behavior is usually the result of human consciousness. So if we're developing consciousness technologies that can actually change patterns of our consciousness and help evolve consciousness, we might have a systemic effect here. So, known from traditional practices and from what is going around in the psychedelics field, it is quite an obvious statement to say that if you undergo a successful transformational process, you will come to the realization that to reach individual, my own health and well-being, I have to actually understand that it is interrelated with the health and well-being of people around me, and more so with the health and well-being of the entire life around us, right? So also even what seems opposite to healthcare, environmental sustainability, can be impacted through this. So this type of consciousness, to be aware that we are a part of nature and not a part of it, or even worse, superior to it, is called deep ecological consciousness. And recently there has been scientific evidence even confirming this notion and from the psychedelic community that psychedelic plant medicines can actually promote deep ecological consciousness. And it has also been shown that it can result in measurable behavioral change towards environmental sustainability. And I think this is really what matters. Consciousness is one thing, but then there's also practical, pragmatic behavioral change that we need to achieve. So if I'm right, if the underlying cause is human consciousness, and we can, and the solution is in promoting the evolution and elevation, I can only agree with Deepika that we have to start with each individual, helping them and empowering them to reconnect to our own true self. And that's what Reconnect is all about. Thank you.